Ready to go. Thank you. Good morning. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. My name is Zahir Bayat and I will be chairing today's session. Panel members today are Gary McKay, Paul Gogan, and Peter Reid. Also present is Deputy Secretary Treasurer Sabrina Salatino. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person, and others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx. The meetings are also streamed on the City of Toronto Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computers or telephone and have the option of participating via video or audio only. When your item is called, you'll be unmuted by the moderator. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. People attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must fill out a decision request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto local appeal body, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons and public bodies are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. Today I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching the 5 minutes. Any presentation or other materials you wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Then, individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we will first call on speakers in the hearing room and then those participating through WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. For this morning's session, Madam Secretary Treasurer, are there any minutes of the last meetings that require adoption?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and panel members. Yes, the minutes from our January 8th Panel A and January 8th Panel B hearings, as well as January the 15th.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt?
Chair, I'll move approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Reid, a seconder. Mr. McKay, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any deferrals for this morning?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't see any files that require closure, and I do not see any deferral requests for this morning.
Thank you. Are there any files that will be closing?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, I do not see any for this morning.
Thank you. In that case, we'll move on to the items at hand.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to find out if there's any conflicts of interest with the members or the city. Yes, not a problem.
Thank you. I don't see any, so it looks like we have no conflict of interest.
Okay, and then through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to talk about the past Canada Post labor disruption. Recent regulatory changes under the Planning Act to modernize public notice requirements, enable municipalities to provide alternative notice of public hearings for minor variance and consent applications. Many municipalities in the Greater Toronto Area and beyond have chosen to provide alternative forms of notice as an interim measure during the Canada Post labor disruption. The city has gone beyond what the regulations require. Some of the things we have done for today's hearing include posting on the City of Toronto website, posting links to the agendas and application information on our web pages, posting on city planning social media channels, posting public hearing signs on the subject site, and publishing the agenda list in the Toronto Star. Through you, Mr. Chair, we can then proceed with item number 1.
Thank you very much. Item number 1 is 551 Northcliffe Boulevard. Committee had before it the following communications: a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 3 photographs of the subject property received April 24th, 2024, covering letter from Jonathan Kaye, if I pronounce it correctly, agent received May 31st, 2024, and an order to comply affecting the subject property. There's support letters, 6 form letters in support, signed by owners and occupants of 549, 553, 558, 560 Northcliffe Boulevard, and 556 and 558 Lauder Avenue, received January 22nd. Do we have the agent online or present by any chance? Nope.
Hi, Louis. You have been unmuted.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Louise. Let me just check and see. We don't have anybody in opposition. Let me just see if committee has any need for a presentation. I don't see any. Just a quick question from what I can see. I think the only thing that I have, the photographs I think were very useful because I think they indicate that essentially you built a carport without permission, with building permits, and it's not really a garage, an enclosed garage, but a carport. Would that be correct?
Yes, here it is.
Okay, so I don't see any issue with it other than I don't think anybody has any concerns as far as I can see. The only question I would ask is I wonder if the purpose needs an amendment because it's talking about a 2-car garage and it's actually a carport, so I'm not sure if that needs to be corrected and amended. I'm not sure if the Secretary Treasurer would be able to weigh in on that one.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if we look at the site plan, and perhaps the agent can speak to that. So the site plan does show a proposed 2-car garage to the rear? So, agent, can you please answer the question?
Hold on, please. Give me 1 second. Okay, what was the question again?
The question is, have you constructed an ancillary building, which is a 2-car garage in the rear yard abutting the laneway, as shown on your site plan?
And well, the first thing what we did is we built a carport. So that was the idea, but according to when the inspector came and asked, and whatever the complaint was, that's why we did all this process to commit adjustment to enclose the 2 sizes in the back, so convert basically from the carport to a car garage.
Okay, so it is a 2-car garage.
So
Yes, that's what the proposal was.
Okay, so at the moment, it's a carport, but it's going to be enclosed to form a garage.
Yes, yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Okay, I don't think we have any questions. Let me see if any of my colleagues have any concerns. Perhaps we can take it into committee and look for any comments or a motion.
Chair, I'm happy to bring a motion. I think that what's being proposed is pretty minor. I think the variances are relatively small, and the size of the garage is really in line with other ones immediately adjacent and throughout the neighborhood. So apart from the fact that this was constructed illegally, which is not desirable, I think the variances are minor, and I move approval of the application with no condition.
Second, Mr. McKay seconds. I wonder if we could just add for the record that the committee doesn't condone
Yes, sounds
construction without. Thank you. All those in favor? Mr. Kayu, you have your approval. Moving on to item number 2. Item number 2 is 1104 and 1106 Dovercourt Road. The committee had before it the following communication: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, revised site plan, floor plans and elevations, received December 10th, 2024, revised zoning notice received December 10th, 2024. 6 photographs of the subject property received September 23rd, 2023. Decisions affecting the property, the 2 decision numbers affecting the property, email correspondence from Raymond Ziamba, agent, received on December the 9th. Supporting materials from Mr. Ziamba received on November 22nd. And in order to comply, affecting the subject property, we also have some correspondence from Deputy Director from Land Development and Real Property Litigation, City Legal Services, and Assistant Planner from Community Planning. The former received on the 17th of July, and the latter received on November the 22nd. Okay, I don't see, we do have one person in opposition. Is the agent online?
Through the chair. Hi, thank you. Through the chair, yes, the opposition, Jonathan Pierre, you have been unmuted. Hi, John.
Oh, sorry, no, I'm not in opposition. I'm the owner of the property. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Just coming back to this. So you're not Mr. Ziamba, you're Mr. Pereira?
That's right.
Sorry, which one?
Sorry, I'm Mr. Pereira.
You're Mr. Pereira, and you're not in opposition, you're actually the owner.
I'm actually the owner, yes.
Okay, for some reason we've got you listed as the somebody in opposition.
And I'm the agent, Raymond Ziamba, from SGL Planning and Design.
Mr. Ziamba, Okay, let me just check and see if we have a need for a presentation from you. Bear with me. Colleagues, anybody require a presentation at all?
I think maybe just a brief explanation. There's a lot of timeline on this file in terms of consultations with the city, and I think just a brief background on what happened and when would be helpful.
Certainly. So I can speak now, or do you?
Yep, please go
Okay.
ahead.
I will try to give a quicker, condensed explanation. If you turn to the plan justification, as you can see on page 1, the site is located north of Gary Avenue on the west side of Dovercourt Road, just north of DuPont, at the DuPont and Dovercourt intersection. As shown on photo 1, the site currently contains a 2-story non-residential building. The proposal today is simply to recognize the existing building and to introduce non-residential space in the form of office, retail, and a takeout restaurant. So I will also note historically the building was used for non-residential. So there's, as you've noticed and outlined in the planning letter, there's a pretty complex planning history that has occurred here. The previous owner undertook renovations in the early 2000s to expand the building to what is there today and introduce residential uses. The previous owner then sought to legalize it at the C of A, which was approved in 2004, but appealed by a neighbor. A settlement was reached in 2004 at the OLT for residential in the second story and non-res at grade. However, the non-res was actually tied to securing off-site parking, which was just a requirement at the time, and was unavailable to meet this requirement. So an amendment occurred in 2012 to permit the ground level as residential storage, but subject to a record of site condition. The previous owner never completed the record of site condition, and the previous approvals are not fully in effect, leaving the lands kind of in a loop. So the current owner purchased the property in 2020 and has been working with city staff on the proposal before you today, finding the simplest path forward to get the lands out of this loop. And this is also reflected by planning staff not submitting any letters of opposition. And we also have a letter from transportation planning indicating there's no concerns. I can quickly go over the variances if you like, but generally the uses that are being contemplated are in line with the OP, complementary to the Gary Avenue employment neighborhood, and in line with EHAN's neighborhood retail and service study. All of the other standards are related to FSI and setbacks, are consistent with the previous approvals, and I think are still appropriate given the nature of the neighborhood and kind of how we have a mix of residential uses and employment areas and employment uses that are complementary to the neighborhoods at the periphery of the Gary employment neighborhood. And I think continuously the proposal maintains the intent of the OP. It maintains the intent of the bylaw by proposing compatible built forms, and there's no adverse impacts related to separation. I would like to note just on the rear yard setback, the setback's actually related to the stairs and is not the building. So that's usually a permitted projection, but not in this case. So the building is actually meeting the required setback too, which is because it can be seen with the parking at the rear. So I'm available for any other questions and clarifications.
Great, thank you very much. Let me just see if there are any other questions. Mr. McKay has a question for you.
Just wanted to mention variance 5. It's quite a large building depth variation. Is it because it's an existing situation?
Yes, so no work has been done there's no changes from the original approvals that were done in 2004. This is just how the building was built in the early 2000s. And if you also look on Dovercourt on the aerial context, you'll see that a lot of buildings that are non-res along this segment have a huge depth. So it's not unusual for these kind of at the periphery of this employment area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the things that helped certainly from my perspective was a little historical sense that was provided in the agent's email, which gave some background to this particular structure and the current state. So I think it's one of those situations that has a history that the building just comes with. So let me see if we can, at this point, take it into committee, and since we don't have any further questions, and see if there's any discussion and/or a motion. Please. Sorry, Paul?
Yeah, I'll move it. Yeah, thank you for the explanation. Thanks, applicant, for the detailed explanation. That was really helpful. Again, do find although the assembly of variances over time, it is a minor in nature, a minor request to get this current site up to date and compliant. So I move that we accept the application as without amendment.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you. Mr. Reid seconds. All those in favor? Thank you. It's a unanimous approval. Mr. Ziamba, you have your approval. And if we can again just add for the record, please. Okay, moving on to item number 3. Item number 3 is 26 Grange Avenue. Committee had before it the following communication: a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 4 photographs of the subject property received August 21st, 2024, covering letter from Hong Jingjin, agent, received August 19, 2024, decision numbers affecting the subject property, and the 2 of them, declaration of use form received November the 1st, 2024. We also have commenting reports from forestry, urban forestry, received January 22nd, and advisory staff report from Metrolinx, and staff report from community planning. Do we have the agent, Hong Jingjin, online?
Hi, Mr. Hong Xing. You have been unmuted.
Oh, sorry, you're right here. And I didn't even look. No, you're not. Sorry. Mr. Jin?
Yeah, my name. Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. We will need a presentation. There is one person in opposition. So if you don't mind, could you provide us with a presentation, please?
Yes, sure. Yeah, my name is Hong Xing. I'm agent on behalf of the owner living in 2 Longevity Road in Brampton. Yeah, regarding the application, actually, the building at 36 Grange Avenue was destroyed by fire roughly two years ago, and it kind of demolished. The lead now is kind of weakened. The previous building actually is 33 meters long. The new proposal here, actually, we are proposing a 3-story detached house. The length of the building will be a little bit shorter than it was demolished before, and the height will be within within the allowed height, and the building will be used as duplex. Basically, we will above ground floor as a primary unit, and then the basement is kind of like a secondary, but we treat that as a duplex. And we also, there's also a garage in the rear yard. We are proposing to demolish that garage and build a 2-story laneway house. For the main building, actually, we are requesting 7 wares, and for the laneway house, we are 3 wares. So the wares we are requesting actually is really related to the building length and also the main wall height and also the setbacks. We also need maneuvers for the soft landscaping in the front yard and the rear yard. That's for the main building. For the living house, basically, we are proposing a little bit longer than 10 meters, which is 14 meters. And also the building height will be a little bit higher than the allowed, which is 6.8 meters, and the allowed basically 6.3 meters. I think that's it.
Okay. Perhaps we'll just hold off on any questions until after we've heard from the person in opposition. Bear with me 1 second. In opposition, we have in person, Mr. Trainee? Oh, you're Mr. Trainee, sorry.
Yeah.
We need...
Can I ask this gentleman's name?
Yes, please.
Kenny.
You can go back.
Oh, okay. No, okay. Yeah. All right.
Yes, my name is George Trainee. I'm sorry, my apologies.
Your name and address, please, sir.
Yes, my name is George Trainee, 58 Henry Street, Toronto. First, I would like to ask that you pull up the basement floor plan, the second floor plan, and the third floor plan.
Okay.
I live a number of blocks away from the above address. My concern is that this project is very similar to a project on our street from a few years ago at 39 Henry Street. The setup is the same, with an affidavit from the owner saying that they would live in the building with a larger than normal number of washrooms and showers and living rooms and dining rooms. At 39 Henry Street, after the building passed final inspection, a number of floors and walls were added. It is now a multi-unit rental, much like a rooming house. And I do not have a problem with rooming houses in our neighborhood. They are much needed. However, I do have a problem with an owner bypassing building code, city bylaws, and not being a registered rooming house with the inspections required for garbage and fire protection. I requested the plans for 39 Henry Street to be here this morning through Freedom of Information, but they have not arrived. As you can see on the floor plan, there's a number of bathrooms, washrooms, including showers and living rooms and dining rooms. And all told, there's 23 bathrooms in the two buildings. So my issue is, this seems to be a normal process now where you can turn a house into a rooming house after a building permit is issued, completed, and then we have a rooming house without the necessary inspections and fire code. When 39 Henry Street was being renovated, I was told I was being speculative. And that appeared again this morning in a correspondence with Josh, the planner. In the case of 39 Henry Street, I was not speculative. So I'm asking, is it possible to put a condition of inspection 24 months after the final permit to make sure that the house is as per what we are provided with today? And what is the effect of an affidavit to the city if it turns out not to be true, as the case I'm suspecting in 39 Henry Street? And how often do you have a proposal in front of you with 10 to 22 washrooms for a 3-unit family home? And I thank you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee. If you just hold on a second, I'll just see if my colleagues have any questions for you. Any questions? No. Thank you very much. Let me just go back to the agent. Mr. Jain?
I hear clear.
You've heard the concerns. Can you please respond to those?
What happened actually, the design and also the owner kind of confirmed that this building will be used as duplex. So that's all I can tell. And it will be designed that way, and also it will be reviewed and constructed that way.
Okay, thank you. You know, when I was looking at the plans as well, the first thing that struck me was the number of washrooms. I was looking actually at the laneway suite, and your purpose actually indicates 2 units in the main house and one dwelling unit in the laneway suite. But from the plans that have been presented, that certainly doesn't seem to be the case. How would you respond to that?
You mean the laneway suite?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear
Hello?
that.
Yeah, I didn't really catch the question. So your question is, how are we going to use the laneway suite?
Well, your purpose indicates that there will be a total of 3 dwelling units. So 2 in the main house and 1 in the laneway suite. But the plans indicate so many washrooms, as the person in opposition, Mr. Trainee, just referred to as well. The 2 don't seem to connect. There's a discrepancy between the 2. How do you respond to the observation?
Yeah, the thing here, basically, if you look at the laneway suite, basically, we are going to have several bedrooms. Each bedroom, they prefer to have washroom just for convenience purpose, right? And basically, the design was based on the owner's requirement, and we confirmed with them. And the CECIL affidavits, basically, they are going to use that as a single unit for the laneway suite. And for the main building, they said they are going to use that 2 units, 2 dwelling units. As far as the number of bedrooms, yeah, because if you look at the size of the lot, it's very large, and also the rooms basically it's not really like basically the size of the floor plan is very large. That's why they want to put the bedroom there. So, I mean, if the city kind of thinks it's kind of appropriate, they can put a condition there. But the intention here is kind of like a 2 dwelling unit in the main building and a 1 dwelling unit for the laneway house, right?
Thank you. Let me just see if my colleagues have any questions and observations. Mr. Reid?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I have a question about the laneway suite. It's in the purpose, it says it's 3 stories, but it's 2 plus a basement. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a 2-story. For the reason that we were kind of thinking to do a 3-story, and the planner basically said they will not really support that 3-story. That's why we revised the design and it's to 2 stories now.
Okay, so in the purpose, can we change that from 3 stories to 2 stories for the reference to the laneway suite?
Yeah, it's going to be a 2-story, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I have a question for the Deputy Secretary Treasurer. Maybe she can speak to this point of what it really does appear to be a rooming house and how that maybe commenting on the variances before us and if there's anything that we can say in regard to that.
Through you, Mr. Chair. This went through a zoning review. The zoning examiner has reviewed this as a duplex building as well as 1 ancillary building. for a laneway suite. And the purpose reflects that. So if something other than that were to occur on the property in the future, then any resident can call into 311 and have an inspector go out to the site and conduct an inspection. And if it were to be a rooming house, then that would have to go through another review to determine if it's legal or not on the site.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Any other questions, concerns? No. Perhaps we can take it into committee and for discussion and possible motion. Mr. McKay?
Well, Chair, in addition to the numerous bathrooms, there are 11 variances requested, and when I see that many variations, I wonder whether the general intent of the zoning bylaws is really being met. So I have difficulty with that, and yes, I'll put a motion forward that the application in this case on Grange be refused.
Thank you, Mr. McKay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be refused as amended, reflecting the amendment to the purpose of application, okay?
Yes, thank you. Any seconders or? No. No seconders? Well, the motion seems to be defeated, not going anywhere. Mr. Reid?
Yeah, I mean, I do have some concerns with this application, particularly in the fact that it does look like a rooming house and it's not being presented as such, but that's kind of beyond what we can do, what we can deal with. I had issues with the 3-story laneway suite, but that's now being clarified that that's 2 stories. I do think that this, it's a very dense area and it's backing onto Spadina that has quite a variety of large buildings. And I do think that this is an okay redevelopment in terms of its size and structure. I think it fits in with, there are larger redevelopments that have happened on this street, and I think this fits in with that pattern. And I do note that community planning is supportive of it. So I think it's a supportable application, and so I'm going to put forward a motion to approve the application as amended. That's with any reference in the purpose to a 3-story laneway suite be changed to 2-story. And that'd be subject to urban forestry condition 3 and then the planning conditions put forward in the late letter.
Thank you. Do we have a second now? Thank you, Mr. Gogan. All those in favor? Your application is approved, sir.
And one opposed.
And one opposed, yes, as amended. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, moving on. Moving on to item number 4, 2004 Dufferin Street. The committee had before it the following communication: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 4 photographs of the subject property received September 3rd, 2024, and email correspondence from Tomasz Goral, agent, received on December 16, 2024. Let's see if there's anybody in opposition. We don't have anybody in opposition. Is Mr. Goral there?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Tomasz Goral.
Let me just see if my colleagues have any requests.
Sorry.
No problem. It's a reflection of what life is. Are there any requests for presentation? None? I see none. Any questions? I don't see any either. Mr. Tomasz, I believe your application is a very straightforward one. You've got one variance, which is relatively minor. So let me just see if my colleagues, if anybody has any comments or any, might put forward a motion.
Okay.
Chair, I'm happy to move a motion. There's just the one variance requested, and I think there's a limited opportunity to increase that above the 10% shortfall. But I do believe that that is a minor variance that's being requested, and the impact of it is limited. So I'll move approval without condition.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Mr. McKay. We have a motion, the seconder, all in favor. It's a unanimous decision, Mr. Tomas. You have your approval. Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, which I believe is postponed. That was 626 Crawford Street. That item has been postponed. So moving on to item number 6, 28 Kent Road. 28 Kent Road, committee had before it the following communication. Pardon me. Copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 4 photographs of trees on the subject property received December 9, 2024. Covering letter from David Armstrong, the owner, received December 23, 2024. Tree site plan with photos prepared by Andy Trotter, received September 23, 2024, and an order to comply. Let me just see item number 5. We don't have any people in opposition. Mr. Trotter, are you there?
Yes, Andrew Trotter, 81 Armstrong Avenue, Toronto, Ontario.
Thank you. Just hold on a second. Let me just see if there are any questions or requests for a presentation from any of my colleagues. I don't see any. No questions, no requests for presentation. Is there anything you'd like to just add before we move on?
Yeah, just that I don't know if the letters of support from both neighbors, north and south, directly connected to the property, were sent actually a couple of weeks ago, but were just uploaded yesterday. And there is letters of support, and I would say if you don't have any questions, that would be all that I had.
Yes, thank you. We did see the 2 letters of support that came through. They were distributed, I believe, yesterday. So we are in receipt of those. One of the things I did note was that the garden walkway, thanks to the photograph, is permeable. And I think that mitigates variance number 1, at least as far as I can see. So I think that's one positive aspect to it. Since this is an item that was that's requesting a legalization, perhaps it's one of those we would just like to add for the record that the committee doesn't condone activity that hasn't been formally permitted. Let me just see if my colleagues have any questions or comments, and if not, a motion. Thank you, Mr. Gogan.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Again, I do believe this is minor in nature. I do appreciate that we should also add to the application with regard to unapproved or unauthorized alterations to buildings. But it is minor in nature, and I think the information, the photos shared, helped the committee have a clear understanding what happened. So I recommend we approve this application.
Thank you, Mr. Gogan. Do we have a second? Mr. McKay, seconds. Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. You have an approval, sir. Thank you. Moving on. Moving on to item number 7. Item number 7, 188 Coxwell Avenue. The committee had before it the following communication: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 2 photographs of the front yard and rear yard of the subject property, received September 24, 2024, 1 photograph of trees on the subject property, received November 25, 2024, supporting materials from the agent received January 22nd, 2025. And commenting agency reports, the staff reports from Urban Forestry and Community Planning. And there are 2 form letters in support signed by owners, occupants of 173 and 180 Coxwell Avenue, received January 22nd, 2025. Let me just see, who do we have? Item number 7, is this Craig Race, the agent online?
Yes, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Let me just see, since there's nobody in opposition, we may not require a presentation, but let me just ask my colleagues if anybody would like a little presentation. No?
I have some questions.
There's some questions certainly for you. Go ahead, Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. I assume that you've seen planning's report recommending refusal, so if you could speak to that, that would be good. But I just had a couple questions regarding the plans. I think the bike parking spaces you're showing inside the units, and they seem to be not actually very usable, like they're in the dining area. So if you could speak to those, and the parking space that's shown in the backyard, it seems extremely tight. Like I'm not sure the turning radius, if that's functional. And also if you could speak to where the bins would go, the garbage bins, and because I think that would presumably require a hard surface to be on, and I haven't seen where that would go, because I'm concerned that might then impact your soft landscape variance. Anyway, those are my questions, please.
Certainly. So I'll begin by addressing the planning report. We did meet with planning prior to the application coming before you today. The feedback we got from planning is that they essentially had no comment other than their position is to recommend refusal for 2-unit accessory dwelling units in Toronto. That's been a standard they've kept since these became a typology in Toronto. What makes this site unique is that it is located on a major street, and the existing structure provides the space for what we view as 2 adequate units. So we're simply proceeding in spite of that occurring. The zoning bylaw amendment that was passed to allow garden suites does include a bullet point list of recommendations for when considering minor variances for suites of this nature. Those include protecting trees, allowing minor variances in order to maintain existing structures, and other elements, all of which we follow. So we actually believe we're following the zoning bylaw amendments and official plan direction when it comes to this typology, and relying on the existing context to support it. Because this is on a major street, this site will theoretically be zoned for 6 stories and essentially unlimited units, up to 60 units, likely later this year. Given that the front home is a single-family dwelling and will remain that way for the foreseeable future, we feel it's an appropriate densification. With respect to bike parking, the bike parking spaces shown within the units are somewhat flexible. That's essentially a drafting requirement for the City of Toronto. There's certainly sufficient yard space for bike parking to be accommodated, or space within the living areas for bikes. So that will be suitable for the site, although perhaps it might not be where currently shown on the plans. The parking space you're seeing is also something that is a technicality. We are required to show a parking space in the rear yard in order for it to be considered a legal parking space. simply to accommodate clearances around minimum parking dimension requirements. The reality is that the car will be parked on the side of the house. That's currently the case and will continue to be the case. Just we didn't have the 3.2 meter width to show a legal parking space there. Finally, with respect to bins, again, those are currently on the site in the rear yard. Those will just be placed on grade. There's no plan for a bin enclosure currently, but there's suitable rear yard space to accommodate it. So just to put that into context for the committee, minimum separation requirements in the bylaw from the home to the garden suite are 5 meters. We have doubled that to be over 10 meters. So we actually view this as a larger than typical rear yard with more than enough space for bikes and bins and everything else. Happy to address any other questions if there are any, or elaborate further if the committee would like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let me just see if there are any other questions or comments from my other colleagues. No. I certainly do have an observation and a comment. I've always taken planning staff's concerns quite seriously, and reading the comments that are contained in the planning staff report, I think their major concern is that you've got a proposal that where the primary residence or primary structure is subordinate to the proposed structures, and I think that's a key piece. And according to the comments, that does not fit the garden suite definition outlined in the site and area specific policies and zoning bylaw. So I find that piece quite compelling in their report. I'm not quite sure why the primary residence wasn't the first structure to be reconsidered for change prior to going to develop the garden suite. So I do have certainly I have a problem with not agreeing to refuse this application based on planning staff's report. But we'll perhaps at this point take it into committee and see what my colleagues have in way of comments.
I would be happy to address that if the committee would like.
Let me just see if my colleagues would like that addressed by you. If not, we'll take it into committee.
I think it's fair to let him address it.
Yep. Thank you. Please go ahead. Mr. Reid would like also to hear your response. That's great.
Thank you. So in general, I've always found that requirement to be illogical. In my mind, we have a perfectly functional home that is small, and I don't understand why we would rather disrupt a home that has a family living in it than intensify a currently useless structure in the backyard. I think that bylaw requirement essentially punishes properties where there are existing small homes and causes disruption to a perfectly functional unit where we can create two with no disruption to that. Further, there is a very good chance that all the buildings on this site will be intensified in the future. And I think that this development does not stop that from occurring, although the order may be different than we would typically see elsewhere. But again, this is a perfectly useful existing home that is being used at the moment in the front. I suppose we could get an addition on it to make it larger so that it is bigger than the structure, but I don't understand why we would force a family to do that to the house in order to then justify the size of the garden suite, which when looked at in context is suitable for the major street it's located on and the size of the property and the existing structure.
Thank you for that. I think that certainly adds a little a perspective that I think is necessary. May I just ask another quick question, if I may? Variance number 2, is that an existing circumstance, or will that be the circumstance subsequent to construction?
Number 2, is that the site coverage requirement?
The soft landscaping in the rear, 50% down to 29.
Yeah, so soft landscaping is calculated from the rear wall of the home to include the entire backyard. The current amount of soft landscaping in this backyard is effectively zero. So we've done as much as we can to maximize soft landscaping outside of the legal parking space and the footprint of the home, which you can see on the colored site plan in our supporting material. Like, we really did make every effort to squeeze every square inch of green space out of this backyard that we could. But that statistic is derived from subtracting a parking space, a walkway, and the footprint of the suite itself from the rear yard.
Thank you. I think that color rendition is quite a useful one. Thank you. Let me just
Thank
see
you.
if any other colleagues have any other questions. If not, we'll move it into committee for a motion. Do we have a motion on the floor, Mr. Reid?
I don't have a motion yet. I think this is a complicated one. I'd just like to raise a couple points, because I think it's rare. I mean, planning has been very clear as to why they're opposed to this, and I think that, I mean, it makes sense. It's the bylaw is quite clear in terms of one unit, right, and the laneway and the garden suite being subservient or smaller than the main house. But I do think the applicant raised some strong points to kind of counter that from a practical perspective, and particularly that this is on a main street, a major street. I think that has an impact on looking at this lot down the line, kind of. And I think the actual, like, the size of the garden suite that's being proposed, the angular plane intrusions are pretty minimal, I think. And so if it were one unit, I'm trying to think, you know, how would I approach that? And what's the impact of having a second unit on the site and on the neighbors? I think it's kind of minor. So I think I support this application. I'd be interested in hearing what my colleagues have to say.
Mr. Gogan?
Mike, notwithstanding planning's comments, which I think are important, what it drawed from me is that the garden suite is 50% larger than the allowable for a garden suite. So it's a big garden suite. So, and I can understand a family buying this building, a garden suite, moving into the garden suite, renovating the front building, all kinds of scenarios that could play out here that could work to their advantage. But it still seems to be a large garden suite to me, given the property. So with that, and again, I'm not on a point of making a motion, but with that and staff comments, I tend to lean towards staff comments more, because it is a significant, given the size of the site, really, and what's allowable for a garden suite of 60 square meters being the not to exceed. So.
Mr. McCain, any offerings?
I agree with Mr. Gogan. I think I have the same concern. You know, 2 units and larger than the primary building. So I think I'd support staff report here.
Thank you. Can I look for a motion at this point?
Not looking good. Time to demolish and build a 6-story building, I think.
So, sorry, so we're in committee at the moment?
See what happens, I guess. I mean, haven't voted yet.
We're in committee at the moment. Thank you. Colleagues, anybody with a motion?
My motion won't pass.
Mr. Gogan, Mr. McKay?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Gogan.
I will start off on the positive side. First of all, it's an excellent application. The graphic quality, everything, really very good communicative tools, photos, axons. Thank you for that, because it really helps us understand what's proposed. Notwithstanding that, though, and the staff planning report, I do find that the proposed variance is not minor in nature, primarily due to the size of the proposed garden suite in comparison to the site. So I recommend that we refuse this application.
Thank you, Mr. Gogan. Is there a second? Mr. McKay? Thank you. Mr. Gogan's moved to refuse. Mr. McKay seconded. All those in favor? 3 in favor, 1, any opposed? 1 opposed.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Reid opposes. The application is refused. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8. Item number 8 is 412 Danforth Avenue. Committee had before it the following communication: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. 5 photographs of trees on the subject property received October 29, 2024. Staff report from TTC, actually, Development Coordinator, Property Planning and Development, TTC, received on January 17th, 2025. And we should have, is it Hanzhou, our agent online?
Hi, through the chair, we have the owner here. That's in person.
Thank you. Mr. Zhou, let me just see if there's any. You've got one variance that's there, nothing more than that. Let me just see if there's any need for questions, application, presentation, nothing at all.
Thank you.
This looks like a fairly straightforward application. May not require a presentation at all. Can we take it into committee and see if there's a motion?
I'm happy to bring a motion, thanks, Chair. Yeah, as you said, there's only the one variance being requested, and it's really an existing condition on a lot of that block in terms of that rear yard setback condition, and so I don't think there's any negative impact of approving it, and it's a small variance from what's permitted. So I move approval of the application subject to the TTC condition.
Thank you. Mr. Reid has moved a motion to approve with TTC conditions. Mr. McKay? Mr. McKay seconds. All those in favor? Thank you. Mr. Zhou, you have your approval.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. That one's done, that one's done. Moving on to item number 9. Item number 9, 69 Willow Avenue. Committee had before it the following communication: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, elevations, 4 photographs of trees, pardon me, on the subject property received October 31st, 2024. There's 12 form letters in support signed by owners and occupants of a variety of addresses on Willow Avenue, received January the 20th, 2025. Okay, bear with me. Do we have the agent Khalid Khadra online?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm here.
Mr. Khadra.
Hi.
I don't think we need a presentation. Let me see if my colleagues have any questions. None? Okay. It's a fairly straightforward application. You've got 2 variances, both of which seem minors. Let me see if any of my colleagues would like to, we'll take it into committee and see if there's any a motion on the floor, any questions. Colleagues, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Gogan.
Yeah, thank you again. Another very good complete application. I do find that the requested variance is minor in nature, both the maximum permitted building depth as well as the FSI. Both are in character with the neighborhood, as well as, I believe, minor in nature. So I recommend we approve this application.
I'll second that.
Got a second. I just wondered if I may be so rude as to interrupt and ask if there's one question that I had of the agent. If I could just step out of committee and ask. Mr. Kadra, just a quick question. You've got a third floor deck, I believe, in the rear. I don't know if it has overlook. And if it does, a privacy screen, would that be a possibility? I believe it's on the south side. And then you've got a proposed rear deck. And south and north sides, if they've got overlook, I think it might need privacy screening.
Hello, Mr. Chair. So the reason why this building is defined as a 3-story is because the basement is defined as the first floor in the most recent zoning application. When we first designed and built this house back in 2019, it was defined as a basement plus 2-story with no variances at that point. At the back of the building, there is a Claremont School, and we have no objection whatsoever from the neighbors about any privacy issues. I would prefer it if we do not go through a requirement for adding a privacy screen. There is genuinely no privacy issues at this point pertaining to this application.
I think when I'm looking at, bear with me, it's A4.3. It's the proposed south side elevation. You've got that third floor balcony now. It literally would overlook the property to the right side of it, to the south side of it. And your deck at the back also is a raised one. So my concern always is not so much the present, your current neighbor may not have said anything, but there are always long-term impacts on potentially new neighbors. So I'm just wondering, I think in the long term it might be a better idea, unless somebody can convince me otherwise.
If you can give me a second, Mr. Chair, I just want to look at the drawings.
Sure, thank you. It's both the north side and south side elevations.
Mm. Mr. Chair, if it helps you support this application, we can add a privacy screen on the south side where there is a new build in place. It was built 2 years ago, and I think they also have I'm not sure honestly whether they have a balcony or a terrace raised at that level. And on the north side, there was an older house, so our deck would be overlooking the backyard. I'm happy to support your recommendation for sure if that helps us get this application approved.
That would be for the deck, so north and south sides on the deck, and just the south side on the third floor balcony?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you so very, very much. Thank you. Colleagues, so with those two items in mind, can I look for a motion?
Again, I'll recommend we approve with those two recommended changes.
Thank you, Mr. Gogan. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Reid. So we have a motion on the floor with those two requests of privacy screens on the south side of the third floor deck and privacy screens on the south and north sides of the proposed rear deck. We have a motion on the floor by Mr. McGogan, seconded by Mr. Reid. All those in favor? Thank you. So you have your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome. Okay, moving on to item number 10. Item number 10 is 43 Rhodes Avenue. The committee had before it the following communication. Copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. 3 photographs of the subject property received October 31st, 2024. Agent email correspondence with zoning examiner received December 13th, 2024. Staff report from Urban Forestry and support correspondence from 2 addresses on Rhodes Avenue, Heather Francis Cutt and Max Heron. Both, one received January 6th and the other January the 14th, 2025. And we should have Brendan Boris Radoff as the agent. Are you online?
Yes, I'm right here.
Name and address, please.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Hi.
Not online, you're right in front of me. I gotta check my eyes again. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brendan
morning.
Radoff. My address is 43 Rhodes.
Thank you very much. Let me just see if there are any questions for you or any question. Mr. Reed has a question for you.
Just regarding variance number 5, I'm having a hard time understanding it. The front ground floor porch platform will encroach 12 meters into the required front yard setback. I don't understand how that's happening. Can you do that?
Yes, we didn't understand that either. I believe it's because the home beside us, which is 45 on the north side, is actually set back behind our house.
Oh, okay.
So we didn't really understand that either, and I think the examiner just needed to put it because that's my next door neighbor.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, and then the front yard, yeah, right, because that would be the midpoint.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a garage or something next door, but that's an actual.
No, it's
okay.
another address, yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Mr. Gogan?
One of your photographs shows construction in the rear yard. Is that your property?
That is not my property, no, that's 45 Rhodes.
You're just showing the fence line, correct?
I'm just showing the fence line in that picture. No, that's another
Thank
house
you.
that's been under
Thank you.
construction for a while, so. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions, could we perhaps take this into committee?
Chair, I'm happy to bring a motion. I think that
Thank you, Mr.
this is, I think the variances are largely a result of the kind of odd lot arrangement here, especially that front yard setback one. I think what's being proposed is completely reasonable, and the impacts of the variances are minor. So I move approval of the application subject to the urban forestry condition.
Yeah. Thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. McKay, thank you very much. Mr. Reed moves motion to approve. Mr. McKay seconds. Forestry condition number 1. All those in favor? Thank you. So you have your approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 11. Item number 11 is 204 Augusta Avenue. The committee had before it the following communication: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. 2 photographs of the subject property received November 1st, 2024. Covering letter from Abhishek Rajgur, agent, received November 21st, 2024. Site-specific zoning bylaw affecting this property, the subject site. Let's see, do we have Harjinder Singh online or present?
Through the chair. Yeah.
Mr. Singh, are you
Good morning.
online? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Abhishek Rajgor online. Sorry about the confusion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from MEM Engineering.
Your name and address, please, for the record.
Yeah. Abhishek Rajgor.
Mm-hmm.
ABHISHEK.
Okay, I'm just writing down the change in my notes here.
Yeah, it's the same name on the application form.
Yeah, I was just looking at the information that I had. Your name is there, but the other sheet that I have says a speaker.
Yeah, so
is
sorry.
Mr.
I think
Singh.
it was from our side.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
okay, as long as we have a voice online. Thank you. Let me just see if we have, you've got a fairly straightforward application by the looks of it. There's one variance before us. It's basically a change of use. Oh no, it's a slight increase in space. Let me see if my colleagues have a request for any explanation or presentation. If not, we can take it into committee and look for a motion. Motion, Mr. McKay.
I think it's a modest increase in the eating establishment, and therefore I'd put forward a motion to approve this application without condition.
Thank you very much. A seconder, Mr. Reid, thank you. Mr. Reid seconds. All those in favor? Thank you. Mr. Rajgor, you have your approval, unanimously approved. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee members, for your time.
You're very welcome. Take care.
Take care.
And moving on to item number 12. Item number 12 is item number 12, 32 High Park Boulevard. Committee had before it the following communication. Copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. 3 photographs of the subject property received October 23rd, 2024, and a covering letter from Sean Galbraith, agent, received January 22nd, pardon me, 2025. We have before us four variances requested from Mr. Galbraith. Mr. Galbraith. Are you Mr. Galbraith? Nope.
Through the
Mr.
chair.
Galbraith, are you online?
Yeah, through the chair, we have Sean Galbraith online as well as
Thank you,
multiple.
Mr. Galbraith. Name and address, please. Sorry.
Good morning, Sean Galbraith, planner here on behalf of the application. Address is 18 King Street East, Suite 1400.
Thank you. Mr. Galbraith, there's nobody in opposition, so let me just see if any of my colleagues have any questions and or... Oh, are you in opposition?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have a number of opposition.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong item. We actually have 4 people in opposition. Mr. Galbraith will require a presentation, please.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
If my cover letter could be brought up. There we go. So the proposal seeks to add a 2-story rear addition. There shown is a picture of the existing backyard. The existing apartment building, the main structure on the property has 11 units on it, and this seeks to add a 2-story rear addition containing 3 units, 1 in the basement, 1 on the first floor, and 1 on the second floor. As you can see, the existing rear yard is entirely hard landscaping. That is going to be, if approved, significantly improved by adding as much soft landscaping as possible into the rear yard. The 2-unit garden suite variance is simply to legalize what has been there for well over 20 years. The tenants that are in there have been there that whole time, and there are no changes are proposed to that structure. The only changes to the existing building are we have to 2 of the windows Rear-facing windows for 2 of the units will need to be closed in because of the new addition, and new windows will be added to those units. In my opinion, the variances are quite minor and appropriate, and would allow for the addition of additional rental units on a property that's well suited, and no tenants will be evicted as part of this process. Everybody can still stay in their units. That's the gist of it. I'm happy to answer any questions or respond to any comments from others.
Thank you, Mr. Galbraith. We do have folks in opposition, so perhaps you can respond to their
Sure.
concerns once we're through the process. Thank you. In opposition, we have a speaker
Through the
present.
chair, we have one opposition speaker in person, so perhaps
Mr. Forger? Oh, sorry.
the owner at 32 High Park Boulevard can go first, and then we can move on to the online speakers afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your name and address, sir?
My name is Victor Rivera. I live at 32 High Park Boulevard, Unit 3.
Sorry, let me just write this down because I don't see it, your name listed here, Mr. Rivera. Thank you, Mr. Rivera. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My concerns are basically the health and safety and the well-being of the enjoyment of the property. It seems that the parking will be reduced from 4 units down to 2 from what I see in the drawings. And the building extends out so far that the 2 vehicles that would still remain there, out of the 3 that are currently there, would not have enough room to do an actual turnaround due to the driveway being so narrow. It has an overpass of a fireway or a landing to get out of the building as a fire escape. It is, I believe, 91 inches in width, already tight enough for most larger vehicles. One of the tenants does have a pickup. I'm astonished how he gets it through without damaging it in any way, shape, or form, but it's so narrow that it makes it virtually impossible to back in if that was the proposal for them to back into the property for anyone who has a vehicle or winds up residing there with a vehicle. The other concern is fire escapes and the fire system because of the plumbing. We have throughout the main house is all a sprinkler system. How is that going to be attached, and will it be enough pressure for the whole system to be supported with the addition? And as well as with all the sensors and anything attached to the main panel as well for fire concerns, because we have pull stations. I have a unique unit that has my floor my unit divided amongst 2 floors. I have a ground floor and a secondary floor. It's an old house, over 100 years old. I have the servants' quarters, is what I believe it was called back then. So I have my own parallel stairwell, but I'd have my own dedicated pull station in my residence for any reason of fire. Removing these windows in the back may present a harder means of escape, presented what kind of fire or disaster may occur at the house. And what inspections will go on in regards to this of how everything will be done, because when I moved in about almost 10 years ago, the water main had ruptured going out to the original house in the back, which was, I think, the former garage converted into 2 units. They had to tear out the whole driveway just to get to the water mains to do the repair. So again, I don't know what else is being looked into just by ripping up the whole property and trying to turn it into something else. Plus, we have a bicycle storage in the back, which there's no indication it's in there or going to be there in the future. And the other concern is all the garbage. We're almost at capacity with all the 11 occupants. We currently have 1 unit that is vacant and all the bins for recycling and garbage. And we have 1 bin for composting, or our green waste. With 3 more units, and I don't know if it's going to be couples, individuals, where the new additional bins will go. As you can see in the picture, they're lined up currently where, the driveway will be for a parking spot. The other final concern would be is airflow and daylight. If there's a picture showing the overhang there, I currently lose light into my kitchen area. Now having a big structure, basically daylight will become a lot more frequently in the evenings in the wintertime and somewhat in the summertime. And airflow. You know, if you want to crack the window for spring air, I don't know how it's going to be for some residents. I know one resident currently has only just 2 windows, and she's on the 2nd floor, Sarah. And she's an elderly lady. She doesn't have air conditioning, so it's one of those things that might be an issue by blocking off these windows. You can see there in the image there's the landing, which is very short, so I don't know how they're going to get machinery in the back to do this job. And the one thing that's not accounted for is that the new addition has a little set of stairs there, or a landing for a pair of stairs. It's not indicated how far it comes out or how wide it is. I don't know if it's 3 feet, 4 feet. It's not in the drawings.
That be all, sir?
That'll be all for now.
Okay, thank you. Let me just see if my colleagues have any questions for you.
I'm okay.
No questions? No. Thank you so much. If you don't mind taking your seat again, we'll move on. Thank you. Hopefully you get some responses from the agent in a moment. Do we have a second person in opposition?
Hi, Mr. Henry Forget. You have been unmuted.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Forget.
Okay, good. Yes, I'm just acting on behalf of the 34 High Park neighbor.
Okay.
Directly south of the,
Your name and your full name and address, please. I think I missed the address.
Yeah, sorry. Henry Forget, and the address 34 High Park Boulevard.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this was applying for 4 different variances. One of which I don't believe to be minor at all, because it is to do with the landscaping on the property. 50% is to be maintained, and they're applying for 30.94, which is pretty significant. The other items in particular is this structure will block all light from the kitchen at 34 High Park once it's put in. And that just the mental health of not having daylight ever from a structure that was just doesn't belong there. In addition, that building architecturally does not suit the neighborhood. It's a stucco finished square box building amongst 100-year-old plus homes. And lastly, I would say as far as major issues, the notice, we had no notice to really prepare for this because we were told Canada Post was on strike. The sign on the neighbor's lawn was very small and blown over, I guess, due to wind. So we're just we haven't had a lot of time to prepare for this. Yeah, and sorry, one last item. The current ancillary building on the property, which is illegal, and I guess they're looking to change that to make it legal. They're ultimately building a second ancillary building, even though they're shown to be attached. There's no attachment to the house. It really is a separate building. And yeah, those are my our issues.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I get this correct. You're speaking on behalf of a neighbor at 34.
Yes, yeah.
But your address is?
I live in Lincoln.
Could we have the address, please?
Yeah, it's 4850 Mountain View Access Road. That's in Lincoln, Ontario.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me just see if my colleagues have any questions for you. If not, we'll move on to the next person. Nope, no questions for you at the moment. Thank you. Next online.
Yeah, the speaker at address 30 High Park Boulevard. You have been unmuted.
Hello, is this Christine? Hello?
30 High Park Boulevard.
Sorry, I just missed the name.
Christine Musial.
Oh, thank you.
Address IAL 30 High Park Boulevard.
Thank you very much. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, I'm the owner of 30 High Park Boulevard since 2013. I'm the neighbor directly to the east of the proposed structure. The actual label given to this structure was an addition. The actual building will be a standalone structure, i.e. ancillary building. This would be the second structure for the lot. The original ancillary building is an illegal two-story garden suite that contains 2 dwelling units. The proposed structure will be a second standalone with 3 dwelling units. I believe that zoning permits 2 accessory structures, but to a maximum of 3 dwellings on a single lot. With the proposal, will be at 5 dwellings. And I don't believe there's been an application for a variance with respect to the 5 dwellings. The planner did not provide dimensions for the illegal 2-story garden suite building, so it's difficult to put everything into perspective. The variance for depth of the building should not be it should not be approved because that could have easily been avoided by a change in plans. The actual structure is a cube, a white stucco 2-story cube, and the width is 25 feet, the length is 25 feet, and the height is 25 feet. It's a big block, and this is exactly what I'll be seeing from my property, from my garden, from my yard, from my kitchen window on the main floor, from my bedroom on the second floor, and from my balcony on the 3rd floor. It's like a big white projection screen that I'll be viewing. The actual structure will be preventing sunlight into my yard. It'll provide for shadow. We use the yard daily in the warmer spring months and in the summer for dining. My patio table is right there, and we'll be looking at this white projection screen. The plantings in the garden won't survive because they were chosen for sunlight conditions. The actual stucco finish does not respect the character of the historic neighborhood that we live in, Edwardian red brick homes. It'll erode the character of the neighborhood. Additionally, the proposed materials that are being used for the structure will provide for a mishmash of materials. The existing building uses 3 different materials already, and the stucco will be a 4th. The soft landscaping is another item in question. As the previous speaker referred to the minimum requirements of 50% not being met, I would like to repeat the same concern. What else? Negative impacts. There'll be a negative impact to my privacy because the building will overlook my yard. And I too agree that the variances are not minor. I believe that all 4 of the variances are major. I ask that the committee refuse the approval for the 4 variances. The proposal building is not desirable for the appropriate development of the neighboring lands. The proposal is not appropriate for the use of the subject property. And it doesn't meet the 4 tests that have been established in the Planning Act. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Bear with me a moment. Let me just see if my colleagues have any questions. No questions for you. Thank you so much.
Through the chair, we have the last speaker. It's also in person, so Victor. Yeah.
Thank you once again. I am speaking on behalf of Katie Bishop. She resides in Unit 2, also my neighbor. Basically, inaccurate blueprints is what's the concern here, loss of features.
Sorry to interrupt you. I always forget. Could you just repeat your name and address? Yours. Yes.
Okay, so my name is Victor Rivera at 32 Hyde Park Boulevard, Unit 3. I'm talking for Katie Bishop, who also resides at 32 High Park Boulevard, and she is Unit 2.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rivera.
Sorry about that. I'm basically reading what she has brought to my attention, and basically she's broken it down to 4 points here. It starts off with inaccurate blueprints, loss of key features. The blueprints presented in this proposal do not accurately reflect the current layout of my unit. The plan involves replacing 6 existing windows with a wall, which will legitimately eliminate our sunroom, not a bedroom entirely. This drastically reduces natural light in the apartment with a veil feature that greatly contributes to the quality of life and well-being. Natural light is not just a preference, it is a necessity for mental health, practicality for those who spend significant time at home. Considering that we have had multiple people who work from home, this is one of the concerns. Concern number 2, the impact on my work from home arrangement. I work remotely full-time for a company not based in Toronto. My job requires a focus and comfortable environment. The concentration, the construction noise and disruptive, my apologies. The construction noise and the disruption will significantly impact my ability to work and may even force me to leave my unit during the construction period, which will be costly. Point number 3, inadequate replacement windows and storage concerns. The proposed replacement windows is located inside our main storage closet. Removing this closet for a window that will leave us without essential storage space, forcing us to incur additional costs for storage unit and expense that the tenants should not have to be forced to bear. 4th point, parking loss. Our lease explicitly includes a parking at the rear of the building. This proposal will eliminate the parking and replace it with a space that is impractical and nearly impossible to access due to the new design. This directly violates the terms of our lease and severely inconveniences us as tenants. The other thing she pointed out to me, she also wants to say the photo that was used there is used with a special lens, which is called fisheye, that manipulates the view of the space in the back. Next one. So everything seems to be bigger. That one specifically with the previous one. My apologies. No, the one you just had before that. It has yes, that would be the one. Making the space seem a lot larger than it is. This is something has been brought up in the previous person before me, saying the space is a lot smaller than it appears. Unfortunately, I have photographs that I've measured out accurately, but unfortunately I could not get them in time. But basically, I'm going to summarize this extension project significantly alters the nature and viability of my unit without consent. It reduces essential features like light, space, parking, creates financial and logistical burdens, and disrupts my ability to work and live comfortably. I urge the council to reject this proposal and consider the severe and lasting impacts that it will have to the tenants like myself. Signed, Katie.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rivera, for presenting that on behalf of Ms. Bishop. Let me just see if my colleagues have any questions of Ms. Bishop. None. Thank you so very much. We'll now go back to Mr. Galbraith for his responses to the various concerns that have been raised. Mr. Galbraith, are you there?
I am here.
Would you mind responding to the concerns that you've heard?
Sure. So I think I made notes for all of them. I'll try and get them. If I miss any, please let me know. First, parking. 2 parking spaces will be retained on the property. No parking is required by zoning, so there's no variance required for the parking spaces. The driveway is adequate to drive in and out of. There is no need, I don't believe, to turn around within the backyard. And again, no variance is required for the driveway. With regards to the soft landscaping, as you saw in the photos, which was not taken with a fisheye lens, there is no soft landscaping at all in the backyard, and it is being maximized for the first time on this property, a significant improvement over the existing condition. With regards to privacy and overlook of 30 High Park, there are no windows facing that property in the proposed addition, and regardless, it's more than 20 feet away from that side. With regards to the 34 High Park, again, you can see on this drawing that's on the screen, there's a 12-foot wide driveway on that side of the property, and we have no side yard setback variance requested, so that is in accordance with the zoning bylaw. Let me see, what else we got here. In terms of the fit and finish, I mean, we know that the materials are not in the purview of the Committee of Adjustment. It is shown as stucco. The owner is totally flexible in this, is happy to use brick to match the character of the neighborhood. That is totally fine. Insufficient notice. I personally hand delivered notices to the neighborhood and provided my contact information and a description of the project. I didn't receive a call or email from anyone. Sunlight and shadow. This is a 2-story rear addition. There are no shadow impacts to the property at 30 High Park. Any shadows that would fall onto that property are from the existing apartment building, which is quite tall and significantly taller than the proposed addition. Garbage. So there is plenty of room in the backyard for additional garbage bins. They would likely be in the adjacent to the proposed addition. In terms of health and safety, the existing building has to comply with building code standards for life safety, as will the addition, and will be constructed in accordance with modern building codes and in accordance with the requirements of the building department. I think that was everything, but if I've missed anything, please let me know. Oh yeah, the staircase width is shown on the drawings, not on the one that's on the screen, but in the actual drawings. The staircase width is 4 feet. That was raised. And this will provide 3 additional units, 3 nice sized units. They are averaging about 570 square feet. It's a good size for new apartments in Toronto that we desperately need. I think that's it. If you have any other questions or if I've missed anything, please let me know.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
I did have one observation, of course, that everybody's observed the same thing, that there are four variances before us. The one that I certainly have concern with is variance number 3, the shortfall in soft landscaping. And I applaud the fact that it would be an improved circumstance should the construction go ahead. But just a quick question, where you've got your car parking, the 2 parking spots, just to mitigate a deficiency in soft landscaping, would a condition that those 2 parking spots be produced out of permeable materials be something you'd be amenable to?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you. Let me just see if any of my colleagues have any questions for you or concerns. Mr. Reid?
Thanks, Chair. Just one question, well, actually kind of 2, but related to the lease conditions of the current tenants. I mean, we heard that one of the tenants has parking that's that's actually outlined as a requirement or as a benefit of her lease. Can you speak to that in terms of the loss of parking and how many tenants have that stipulation? And the other thing is that, I mean, a couple of the units are going to be substantially impacted, mostly in regards to the windows facing north, and what action is going to be taken to remedy that for the tenants.
Thank you. I just sent I don't know the terms of all the leases in the building. I just sent a text to my client to see if he can get back to me quickly with that information. But one of the car parking spaces would presumably be for, not all the tenants have parking secured as part of their leases. As for the units the two units that will be affected, new windows will be added to those units to compensate. It's not a one-to-one compensation, unfortunately, but new windows will be added to those units that are losing their rear-facing unit or rear-facing window.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions or concerns?
I have.
Perhaps we can take it into committee at this point and move forward. Thank you. Do you have any comments before I request the motion?
I can start with some comments, Chair.
Thank you.
I understand the concerns of the, I mean, I'm mostly sympathetic to the concerns of the tenants of this. I think that the massing of the building is actually done in a way to kind of minimize impacts on the neighbors to the east and west. And I think that the fact that it's limited to 2 stories is positive. But I do feel for the existing tenants, particularly the first and second floor at the rear, because I think that those units will be changed significantly. But I do look at the 4 variances being requested, and the depth is minor. The FSI I feel is minor. The landscaping is a marked improvement. There's 0 almost now, and it's going up to 30. I think that's a very large improvement over what's existing. And the ancillary building, you know, that's just an existing condition that's been there for a long time. So I see that as more of a technical variance. So given the variances, I feel like I have to support this application.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Mr. Gogan?
One comment, sort of on top of what you're saying, Peter, is that it looks like the proposed addition is trying to minimize disruption on the existing units, although anyone who's got north-facing windows is impacted. Yeah. But it looks like it's trying to keep as many of the tenants in place without disrupting them. I don't know if that's the intent, but I think that accounts for the massing of the building, for sure, and the exiting. So, and I do agree with you. I do find that individual variances minor in nature and a marked improvement in landscape. And I also, first of all, thank everyone who came to speak on this. We really appreciate that. With regard to building issues, with regard to current leases, we really can't comment or get involved in that. All we can do is comment on the variances that are requested in front of us today. So, but I would encourage the applicant and whoever the owner to engage in meaningful discussion to address impacts on the tenants. But other than that, I find it generally supportable.
Thank you, Ms. McKay.
Yeah, just one thing with respect to variance 4. It may be that, yes, there are 2 existing units, but I'm wondering if we're creating a problem for our planning staff to essentially say, we'll recognize this as a garden suite with 2 units. And we've already seen a situation somewhat like that today. So I have a concern with respect to that. Otherwise, you know, I agree with my colleagues here. And I don't know how to solve that variance.
Sure. Whether Mr. Galbraith had indicated whether those two, the garden suite is currently occupied, so there'd be tenants in both. So the dilemma, I suppose, is that if one refuses that variance, it may have an impact on the existing tenant, which is another challenge. As far as the landscaping is concerned, I think the addition, the 30% is great, and the Mr. Galbraith's agreement to have permeable pavers on the parking pads, and that adds to the permeability. The dilemma is that we do have only 4 variances in front of us, and that's what we have to look at. In general, I think this is a supportable application. You know, most of the variances, from my perspective, are minor. And I note that the planning hasn't weighed in on this particular application either.
All right, well, I'll take a test at this. I'll make a shot. I recommend we approve this application. I don't know if there's any amendments. I don't believe so.
Permeable pavers for the.
Permeable pavers for the 2 parking spaces is the only amendment.
I'll second that, Chair.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Mr. Gogan moved the motion. Mr. Reid has seconded with the condition that the parking pads in the rear be produced out of permeable materials. All those in favor? Thank you. None opposed? Thank you. Mr. Galbraith, you have your approval.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you and the panel members want to take a 5-minute break at this time.
We must look a little weary, I think. Thank you
No,
so
no, I'm just asking.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break and be back at, what time is it? I can't quite see it. It's 11:22. How about 11:30? Yeah, 11:30 we'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're back with item number 13, 114 and 114R Baldwin Street and 75 Cecil Street. The committee had before it the following communication. Pardon me. Copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 4 photographs of trees and the subject property, received November the 6th, 2024. Planning rationale from Robert Chang, agent, received 22nd January 2025. Rental demolition and conversion declaration of use and screening form, received December 9th, 2024. Tree site plan prepared by Robert Chang, architect, received November 6, 2024, and email correspondence from the zoning examiner received December 23rd, 2024. We also have reports from Transportation Engineering Development Services and a staff report from Community Planning received January 25th, 2025. Do we have...
Yeah, through the chair, we have the agent online and no registered speakers.
Thank you.
Robert, you have been unmuted.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chang. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And you?
Oh, can't complain at all. We're indoors. Thank you.
It's very sunny outside, though.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day.
Just before I proceed, you are aware of the Planning Department's staff report requesting refusal of this application, are you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'm just wondering at this point, I think we might require a brief presentation for sure, because I think this is a little bit more complicated a presentation, application.
Yes. If I may, if I can start, good morning. I'm
name and
Robert
address, I'm
Chang.
sorry.
Sorry?
I just need your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, it's Robert Chang, 477 Richmond Street West, Suite 301.
Thank you.
I'm the architect for 114 Baldwin Street. The project site before you is comprised of 3 parcels of land. 114 Baldwin Street is street fronting on Baldwin and has a 2-story house. 114R Baldwin Street is located to the rear of 114 and is presently used as a commercial parking lot. 75 Cecil Street is connected to 114R Baldwin and is also used as a commercial parking lot. We are proposing 10 new townhouses organized in 3 distinct and modest-sized blocks. The proposed height of the townhouses at 12.6 meters are under the as-of-right maximum permitted height. The proposed FSI at 1.42 is in line with many properties on the block. The variances we are seeking are minor in nature, and this project is an opportunity to convert asphalt paved commercial parking lot into much needed rental housing. We ask the committee to support more housing by approving this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me just see if my colleagues have any questions for you. Mr. Reid has a question for you.
Thank you, Chair. A couple questions. The first one is related to the Baldwin property. It seems like that's going to be demolished, and so can you just speak to what's happening there? Is that an access to the site? And then the other question is, I'm wondering the conversations you've had with planning, because I mean it's a very large and complicated proposal that you're putting forward, and I want to know what your interactions with the planning department have been.
Yes, happy to. We first started on this project in 2017, over 7 years ago. And at that time, my clients had acquired 114R and 75 Cecil Street. in dealing with the city and the various departments for over 4 years, we were unable to get city's approval to provide site servicing for the properties. We had produced a number of designs, options. We reached out to the councillor's office to see if there can be some accommodation of community-related activities and so on. But after 4 to 5 years of trying, development engineering refused to provide any servicing by way of the laneways. And I note that there are 3 laneways that access this property, 2 of which are 6 meters in width. My client then spent some time and resources hiring engineers to show to the city that site servicing could be achieved by way of the laneways, including meeting all the requirements set out by development engineering. And they continued to refuse approval for that. So in the last year and a half, my client then proceeded to acquire 114 Baldwin Street, which is fronting on Baldwin. And by doing so, we are then able to provide site servicing from a street, which would be Baldwin Street. And I think that by doing so, I think we are respecting the city policy that they have for the entire city, which is that they do not like people to provide servicing by way of laneways. And so you can see that the change in policy in recent years vis-a-vis the laneway suite and garden suites, that people are able to proceed with those projects by way of providing site servicing through their properties connected to a municipal street. And that is exactly what we're proposing. My client does not intend to demolish the existing building on 114 until when the building permit can be received for the project itself. So this is where we find ourselves. And we've had numerous interaction with city planning, and I don't believe that the proposed use and the built form is necessarily objectionable from their point of view, but there is a whole series of issues related to other departments, specifically development engineering as it relates to site servicing. But I think the proposal that you have before you addresses some of their concerns, and I think it's something that is very much appropriate for this site.
Thank you so very much for your response. Let me just see if any of the other colleagues have any questions for you. No, Mr. McKay has a question.
I just wanted to get back on that question of servicing. What is it that you need off Baldwin? Are you looking at having to extend, say, a sanitary sewer and a storm sewer and a water line?
Correct.
All right, and you're saying obviously as part of your development, then those services would be extended through the 3 holdings that you have. And 75 CECIL and 114 rear.
Yes, it would. The city connection would be on Baldwin, and then everything else would be internal on the property, and all the 3 blocks, all the structures would then be connected to that.
Any other questions? No. Just for my part, I'm looking at the comments that have been provided by planning, and it's the 4th paragraph in the comment section where it says that in its current state, the proposal is not acceptable to staff, and I fully understand your concerns and the fact that you've been trying to have this discussion with them. It says it's not acceptable to staff, and further discussions regarding infrastructure, servicing, garbage pickup, etc., remain outstanding. Can you just speak to that? Because they're saying on the one hand that these discussions are outstanding, And on your part, it sounds like you have been having conversations. There seems to be a disconnect between the two.
Well, the only thing I can add to that is the design that is before you is in line with the most recent changes in the bylaw that governs development of lands, specifically Municipal Code 415. And that was a policy change in response to, I think, from the province wanting to for the city to produce more housing. It should be noted that in the zoning review, the city did not cite site plan control as a requirement for this project that you see before you. And the comments that the city is making, essentially saying that they would like site plan control over this project. We think that we've done everything in response to the latest changes in the municipal code. And as such, I don't think that we need to, we fall under that requirement.
Yeah, dilemma for sure. Definitely a challenging application.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add two more points.
Sure thing.
One is I can address, for instance, solid waste management, garbage pickup, and so on. As you know, projects like this, we can address that by contracting out those services to a private company. So that can be addressed. The second is related to fire services and the concerns that they may have. And it should be noted that there are two fire hydrants, one on Baldwin and one on CECIL, within the 45-meter requirement to the curb. And from that position, every front entrance for all the housing units are within 90 meters. If the housing or the townhouses are provided with additional fire protection requirements. And that issue can easily be addressed during the permitting process. We would, this project, I think we would proceed with, for instance, providing sprinklers, and those kinds of, responses, I think, can address many of those concerns that are often reviewed under site plan control. So I think that there are safeguards within the existing approval process that we think is adequate to address some of the concerns that planning department is raising.
Thank you. Let me just, I think perhaps I'll take it into committee and see what comments and come forth from my colleagues. Thank you. Hold on a second, Mr. Chang. Thank you. So, any thoughts, any concerns? Mr. Reid?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I do have concerns. It seems a bit premature to me, and I understand that the applicant's been working for a very long time with the city, but I'm hesitant to approve this without these substantial issues being resolved. I don't think that it's something that should be left to the permitting process. I think that these are significant issues that could alter the actual massing and arrangement of the buildings. It almost seems like a rezoning process might be more appropriate for this. So I respect what the applicant and the owner of this property are trying to do. I think that this is a great idea in terms of improving surface parking in a very central neighborhood into housing, but I don't feel that it's in a state that is supportable at this point. So I can't vote to it.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Mr. Gogan, Ms. McKay?
Yeah, I'll add to that. Again, first of all, I had trouble when I saw the renderings, what was existing and what was proposed. It's such a excellent, and I'm also a big advocate for infill projects in the city. I think that's an untapped gem in the city, is to really make the best of underutilized spaces in the city. So I really applaud the effort here, but I agree with Peter that, because of the complexity, because of not only building issues, but just overall planning, site utilities, all that stuff, to make sure that we have, I kind of gravitated towards a full rezoning for the property versus a minor variance process because of the complexity of this and the leveraging what are basically right now laneways. They are not city streets. And again, I don't understand it. I think the effort is tremendous that's been put together to put this together, but I think it's too big of an ask for the minor variance process.
Mr. McKay, any thoughts?
I agree with that consensus.
Yeah. Then on my part, I think it's a great project, wonderful use of the vacant space, and I think the city certainly has lots of that running around that could be repurposed. But I think without the kind of approval that planning would normally provide for such a project, I think it's premature for us to be able to address this particular application. So I do urge Mr. Chang to take, and the applicant to take this back and continue the discussion and at least get all the ducks in a row and signatures in place, and then we're off to a wonderful start, I suspect. So I'll look forward to a motion.
Chair, thanks. For the reasons we've all stated, and I think echoing your statement that the applicant, please continue to work with the city. I think there's a solution here. I move refusal of the application.
Thank you. A second, Mr. Gogan. Thank you. We have a motion to refuse, first put forward by Mr. Reid, seconded by Mr. Gogan. All those in favor? Thank you. Mr. Chang, unfortunately, application at this stage is refused. We really do urge you to continue that conversation. So we all think that it's a project that's worthwhile. Thank you so very much. And moving on to item number 14, 170A Strathern Road. The committee had before it the following communication: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. 4 photographs of trees on the subject property received November 7th, 2024. Covering letter, pardon me, from Nikki Vajsar, agent, received January 22nd, 2025. Presentation materials received from the agent January 22nd, 2025. We have an advisory staff report from Metrolinx and 6 form letters in support signed by owners and occupants of 170, 171, 173, 174 Strathern and 174 and 176 Ava Road, Willow Avenue, received on the 20th of 2025, 20th of January. Thank you.
Through the chair, we have the agent online and no registered speakers.
Thank you. Nicole, I hope I'm not messing up your pronunciation of your last name. Maybe you can correct me and just guide me.
It's Nicole Vajsar.
Vajsar, it's a silent J. Thank you. I don't believe we have anybody. Oh, no, we do. I beg your pardon. I'm looking at 2 separate sheets here. Oh, no, that's a separate one. So we don't have anybody in opposition. But let me just see if my colleagues have any questions or concerns for your presentation. Mr. McKay?
I thought Metrolinx needed some kind of review. I thought this was advisory, but maybe the applicant.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're not able to hear Gary McKay. Please ensure that your microphone is on.
Thanks very much. Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Just very briefly, I was just saying, in this case, perhaps there's something a little more than an advisory needed for Metrolinx. I made a note of something they're calling Metrolink's municipal consent review, and I just wonder if the applicant is aware of that or can make any comment on that issue.
I actually just saw that this morning when I hopped on to see if there were any issues from forestry or from Metrolinx. I've actually never seen this requirement before. I plan to send them plans after this hearing to see what their review would consist of, as we're pretty far from Eglinton, so I'm not sure what their requirements will be.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think we've answered that as far as we can go today. Thanks.
I think it's important that as long as you are aware of it and will follow through as required, you should be okay. Thank you. Let me just see if there's any other thoughts to this one. It's a fairly straightforward application. Fairly minor. Perhaps we'll take it into committee and, sorry, Mr. Gold.
I'll just move it, I think we should move forward and approve this application.
Thank you.
It is, I think, minor in scale and scope. It's in character with the neighborhood, and none of the requested two variances are both are minor. So I move that we approve this.
Pardon me, with the Metrolinx advisory.
With note of the Metrolinx advisory.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. The Metrolinx is advisory comments, so I wouldn't. Like we're not going to include those as conditions, right? They're advisory comments, so we'll leave it at that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Mr. McKay? Thank you. Mr. McKay seconds. All those in favor? Thank you. You have your approval. And moving on to next item on the agenda. Next item on the agenda is 21 Baby Point Crescent. The committee had before it the following communications: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Covering letter from Jessica Poplata, agent, received December 4th, 2024. Some decision numbers affecting the subject properties. Arborist report received October 28th, 2024. Urban forestry permit received 28th November 2024. We have staff reports from urban forestry. There's 2 of those. And from Toronto and Region Conservation Authority received January 22nd. We also have advisory staff report from Heritage Planning and a staff report from Archaeology. That's the second Heritage one as well. We have correspondence in concern from Jim and Adrienne Sang, 29 Baby Point Crescent, received 21st of January 2025. We have 5 items of correspondence in opposition. From 67 Baby Point Crescent, 5 Baby Point Crescent, 27 Baby Point Crescent, 35 Baby Point Crescent, and 17 Baby Point Crescent. We have the agent.
Through the chair, we have the agent online, and there are opposition speakers online as well. David, you have been unmuted.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Last name is Bronskill, Bronskill, first initial D. David, 333 Bay Street, Suite 3400, here on behalf of the applicant as their agent.
Good afternoon. Oh, I think it's afternoon. No, not quite. Good morning, Mr. Bronskill. Thank you so much for being here again, and we'll need a presentation since we have folks in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have reviewed those letters and I will try to address a few of the concerns, but then maybe listen to the speakers and add a little bit more afterwards. And Mr. Chair, what I'm going to do is just break the submissions into three pieces for you. One is just to describe what's being proposed. The second is then to address comments raised related to heritage. And then the third is related to some comments that this is not just enclosing the porch, because there may be, I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, but there may be some misunderstanding when I read the letters in terms of what is exactly being proposed. So we thank for staff for putting the plans up. If I could ask them just to go to the next page of that document with you. And I just wanted to, if I can, do you see where it says proposed porch enclosed? At the bottom of that, there is an architectural element that protrudes from the existing house that lines up with the black heavy line that is on the bottom of the proposed enclosed porch. That is, if you see where it says 2% slope, there's a small architectural projection in the existing house. I just wanted to flag that for you so you can see how it relates to the proposed enclosure. And then apologies for staff, if they could go back up 2 pages to the photo of the existing house. Thank you. And you can see there on the left, there's a window on the right-hand side, and you can see on the left-hand side of that window, sorry, the other window. Yeah, thank you. With staff, I see the hand. It's on the right-hand side of that photo. To the left of that first floor window, you can see that architectural projection. Okay, so that's where the enclosure will be extending to. And the reason I'm highlighting that for you is that's also the footprint of the existing porch. I just wanted to flag for the committee exactly where the existing porch is located and exactly where the addition is being suggested on the front. If I could then ask staff to go back into the plans and scroll down, and there is a plan, if you can keep going, just maybe one more. I'm just going to thank you to staff. One more again. That's the existing basement. You can see the unexcavated portion below the front porch. So there is a foundation there, but it's unexcavated. That matches up with the existing front porch at the top. And you can see to the left of that, the existing architectural piece that I've pointed out to you now twice. So again, the foundation for the porch lines up at the top there with that existing piece. And then if staff could go down one more plan with me, it's going to be the existing ground floor plan. Thank you. And again, you can see how the porch, right where the W3 is on the plan, tucks in next to that architectural element. That's the existing porch. That's what's being enclosed. And the reason for the request, Mr. Chair, just to explain what's being requested, the house is not moving forward. That main front wall of the house is staying exactly where it is, despite what has been suggested in some of the letters. The reason for the request is from the front door, which you can see opening there, to the stairs, it's about 4 feet. There are no closets. There's no space for coats and boots. My clients have kids. It really is a non-functional existing entry. And the idea is simply to take that porch and close it. And I know you've seen it on the plans. On top of that existing foundation, it's 150 square feet, and it's a vestibule entry that they'll use coming in, so that the existing entryway that there is, frankly, not huge, can be used by them functionally for the family. Heritage has no objection, despite suggestions in the correspondence that there are heritage issues as part of processing a heritage conservation district, and there are conditions of approval related to archaeology that we would ask you to impose. They are fine with us. That's, Mr. Chair, just an explanation And I may have some more to say in terms of the comments from those speaking in objection, but it really is the smallest of variances. It relates just to this porch, and we would have no concern if the committee wanted a condition that would tie it to site plan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bronskill. We can now move on to folks in opposition. Nobody here, I take it, in person. So, okay, thank you.
Hi, the opposition speaker at 67 Babby Point Crescent. You have been unmuted.
Thank you. Dear member of the panel.
Good morning.
Of the panel.
Sorry, good morning. Sorry to interrupt. Could we just get your full name and address, please?
Sure. Mary Ann DeMonte Whalen.
Thank you.
And I live at 67 Baby Point Crescent.
Thank you.
And I am chair of the Baby Point Heritage Foundation.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dear members of the panel, I am chair of the Baby Point Heritage Foundation and am representing the foundation and its neighborhood members in today's hearing. Founded in early 2010, the Baby Point Heritage Foundation began as a collaboration of neighbors with common interest and a shared goal to preserve and protect the built heritage of this exceptionally unique neighborhood. Concerned by interest in demolishing or radically modifying the exterior of homes and streetscapes in Baby Point, and catalyst into action by the demolition of a heritage arts and crafts home, the group decided to form the Baby Point Heritage Foundation with a view to educate and inform residents and the public of the heritage of the neighborhood, which is historically, architecturally, and archaeologically significant to the history of the City of Toronto, the province of Ontario, and to Canada. On December 18th, 2024, Toronto City Council enacted bylaw 1367-2024, which designated the Tiegon Baby Point Heritage Conservation District under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The bylaw also adopts the Tiegon Baby Point Heritage Conservation District Plan, dated November 2024, as the district plan for the Tiegon Baby Point Heritage Conservation District. It will be enacted into force on February 11, 2025. I allege that the proposed massing to the front of 21 Baby Point Crescent is not minor, and more importantly, is contrary to the objectives set out in the plan for the HCD, which is not to alter the front of existing homes or have a mass on the front of a home, which this is proposing. In addition to addressing the points raised on page 2 of the application, the variance is not minor. It is not desirable for the development or use of the land. In fact, is not even required or needed. It does not follow the intent and purpose of the city's zoning bylaw or the intent and purpose of the official plan. In addition, it is not major and it's in contravention to the recently enacted bylaw 1367-2024. And I would also like to respond to a suggestion by Mr. Bronskill that they need this enclosure for a closet. It's a big house, you can see. There's lots of ways that a closet or whatever they require can be put into that, into the existing house. I don't accept this explanation for enclosing the front porch, and it will not be in keeping with the heritage designation of the neighborhood or the intent of the heritage designation, which is not to attach a mass to the front of an existing heritage home. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Let me just see if colleagues have any questions. Yes, we do have one question from Mr. Gogan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you aware of the heritage planning comments that they generally approve the application, or they have no concerns?
Isn't that urban forestry?
No, heritage planning reviewed the.
Let me see the date on that. No, I was told that they were
February 9th, 2024.
2024. That was a year ago. That was before the HCD came into effect. So,
Through you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair. What we're presenting on the screen is January 2025.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you.
It's okay.
I have the old one in front Anyway, so just be aware that Heritage has reviewed it and they have commented as well.
Okay, it was my understanding that they were against it. So I'm not sure where this came from.
For you, Mr. Chair, this is a staff report that's been submitted, and they are imposing conditions.
They're
If the
opposing them.
committee, they are imposing conditions if the committee is to approve the application.
If the committee is to approve, so they're not approving it from what I understand.
Heritage staff has no concerns. They are suggesting conditions if the committee is to approve the application.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions for this? Thank you so very much. And moving on to our next presenter.
My name is Jennifer Harrington. I live at 27 Baby Point Crescent. Can you hear me?
Perfectly, thank you. Ms. Harrington, if you don't mind giving us your presentation, you have 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Before I begin, I will just note that I believe the report you're looking at from Heritage Planning is relating to the archaeology of the property and not the actual architectural design, which is what the city staff have been working on for several years now. So as I mentioned, I'm at 27 Baby Point Crescent, which is located 2 homes to the west of 21 Baby Point Crescent. I'd like to provide some background that is directly related to the 2 variances requested by the homeowners. Baby Point Road and Baby Point Crescent together form a bit of a meandering, what we in the neighborhood call a loop, featuring larger homes, with most built between 1911 and 1941, which is known as the Holmes-Smith building restriction period. The streets are curvilinear, featuring deep sweeping front lawns, and there's a sizable amount of space between them, particularly by Toronto standards and certainly by some of the variance applications that we've listened to this morning. The tree canopy was maintained during this wave of construction, and the homes were sited on their lots to follow the natural topography. Our backyards back onto the ravine, which is protected. During this first phase of construction, the homes in the neighborhood were restricted to specific architectural styles while allowing for individual differences. This, together with the deep setbacks and the emphasis on green space, creates an overall sense of rhythm and harmony in the neighborhood from a design perspective, which residents enjoy daily for recreation, whether it's running, biking, dog walking, and so on. So these 2 restrictions, that is to say the architectural style and building setbacks, were key defining design features in the development of Baby Point. It should be noted that many of the homes on the loop have been significantly renovated and modernized, but few alterations are evident from the street view. It is in fact remarkable that 78% of the homes included in the City of Toronto's Cayegon Baby Point HCD area are considered to be contributing properties, meaning that despite more than 100-year history, the large majority of past and current residents have retained the facades of their homes as well as the setbacks, believing them to be significant features of the neighborhood that merit preservation. The neighborhood is truly unique, and it's frankly, it's beautiful. As neighbors, none of us, and I'm talking about myself and others on the street, none of us objected to the very large variances that the homeowners of 21 Baby Point Crescent requested in 2023 and 24, which have included a 2-story rear and side addition, a very large 3rd-story addition, side 2nd-story addition, rear ground floor terrace, swimming pool, hot tub, removal of the roof structure, and a 1-story coach house. Many of us are, however, alarmed at the size of the 3rd-story addition, as well as by the recent removal of the home's roof and front porch. The front porch seems to have been removed, okay? With all of this in mind, we object to this variance request because the home is getting even bigger. The proposed alteration is well above the permitted floor space index of 0.4, further increasing the already large home to 0.75 times the area of the lot. Specifically, the proposed alteration is not an enclosure of the porch, which has been suggested by Mr. Bronskill. Although he's shown it from an aerial perspective, what we see from the street is actually the roof line, what is overhead. The front porch that you see that has a foundation is really not what we see at the street level. We see, if you scroll, actually, if staff is able to scroll to that picture of the front of the house, what you actually see is that part above, which is really only about, what's being shown right now is, I think that's the rear. It's actually only about 2.5 by 5 feet. The proposed front addition creates new interior space and has a footprint of approximately 150 square feet, including the roof line, which is about 10 to 15 times the current size.
Sorry to interrupt you, but you're running out of time. I wonder if you could begin to wrap up, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we also object because the proposed alteration is moving the home about 10 feet closer to the sidewalk, exceeding the minimum setback requirements significantly. This sets a precedent for future homes to build closer to the sidewalk, risking a key defining characteristic of Baby Point. It's also important to note that Baby Point Crescent this particular home is situated at a flexion point on the loop where the road comes together and then goes back out. And all of the homes are very deliberately sited to be like a foot back from another. And this particular home is already sited because it's at a flexion point about 15 feet ahead of the home to the east.
Sorry to interrupt you again, but you are really going over time, so if you don't mind.
Okay. So I will end that there. I'll say it'll be jarring, it'll be upsetting the rhythm, and it's a streetscape that we all share.
Thank you so much.
In the neighborhood.
Thank you.
And finally, just to point out, I'll just say this one, NHCD was approved unanimously at the Toronto Preservation Board in December, and on the 18th was passed at council.
Thank you very much, but you really are going way beyond your time. Let me just see if there are any questions for you. No, none at all. Thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
Through the chair, that is all. We do not have any other speakers at this point of time.
Thank you so very much. Let's go back to Mr. Bronskill. Mr. Bronskill, you've heard the two folks in opposition. Would you mind just responding to their concerns?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try and do so without repeating myself. So the last speaker mentioned trees. There's no impact on any trees. There's no trees proposed for removal. There is a standard forestry condition, and that's in part because there are front yard trees that are being maintained. There was a suggestion about ravines. You've got the TRCA report in front of you confirming that they have no concerns. I think that's obvious because it's this modest front addition. You've had a concern expressed to you that there are negative impacts from heritage. First of all, Mr. Chair, the Heritage Conservation District has technically not yet been adopted by City Council, so it's not applicable. It is subject to appeal. But most importantly, I come back to the fact that heritage planning is one department. You have conditions related to archaeology. We are supportive of those conditions. But it's evident on the face that heritage planning as a department have reviewed this application in conjunction with a very active neighborhood review related to the Heritage Conservation District Plan. If there was a concern from the heritage planners that this 150 square foot porch was going to negatively impact the HCD, you would have that report in front of you, Mr. Chair. Frank, and then finally, Mr. Chair, there's a suggestion that this is a jarring addition on the front. I think when you look at the site plan, and I think when you look at any of the front elevations of what's there today in terms of the porch and what would be there tomorrow in terms of a vestibule, I think jarring is a significant overstatement. That site plan right there, I think, Mr. Chair, is perfect. It is a front enclosure that is set back significantly from both of the side walls. It is sitting on top of the existing porch, and I think I've established that for you by walking through the plans and showing you both the foundations and the architectural element. It is not bringing the main wall of the house any closer to the street and creating additional impacts on either of the adjacent neighbors. And I just think it's a fundamental exaggeration to this committee to say that someone walking on this street is going to have any type of impact on them from a 150 square foot enclosed porch that isn't about closets, as was suggested, but is about space for a family entering a home. This is a lovely and desirable home today, and it will continue to be a lovely and desirable home tomorrow. Mr. Chair, I don't think you heard any evidence from anyone that these two small variances don't meet the 4 tests, and we are hopeful to have the committee's approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bronskill. Let me just see if the committee members have any questions for you at this point. If not, we'll take it into committee and deliberate. Thank you. We don't have any other questions. Are there any comments that anybody would like to offer before we look for a motion? Mr. Reeves?
Sure, Chair. I agree with the agent's point that I think that the people in opposition, the impact of what they're seeing here does feel a bit exaggerated. From my perspective, this looks like a tasteful and relatively small addition to the front of the property that's mimicking the footprint of the existing porch. Yes, it is a new space, a new enclosed space that's going to be existing, but I don't see it as detracting from the neighborhood. And additionally, I think the fact that as the agent said, we do have communication from Heritage, from their archaeology perspective, but there's nothing from a kind of built form heritage perspective included in that communication. So I take that to be that Heritage is fine with what's being proposed. So I support this application.
Any other thoughts, any comments?
No.
Just for my part, I think this is, we've got 2 variances in front of us, both of which in this particular context appear to be both minor. I do not believe that, to echo Mr. Reed's comments and Mr. Bronskill's actually, that had Heritage had any concerns related to the structure, it would have been very apparent. They're more concerned at this point about the archaeological issues that may or may not arise. So I think this is a very supportable application. I'll look forward to a motion.
Sure, I'll turn that into a motion. I move that we approve this application subject to urban forestry and heritage conditions.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Mr. McKay, thank you so very much. All those in favor? Thank you. Mr. Bronskill, you have your approval. Thank you. And now we're moving on to item 16, 282 Gladstone Avenue. The committee had before it the following communication: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations. 5 photographs of the subject property received October 23rd, 2024. 7 photographs of trees on the subject property received November 28th, 2024. Do we have Mr.
Yeah, through the chair, we have the agent online, and we have 1 opposition speaker online.
I think it's afternoon now, Mr. Cameron. Sorry, Mr. O'Neill, are you there?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, the microphone just dropped out there for a second.
Problem.
I didn't catch the last part.
Good afternoon. I will need a brief presentation because we do have somebody in opposition. I believe there's 1 person in opposition.
Certainly, I'd be happy to accommodate that request. Just as a side note, I have been scouring the city website for any communications and haven't as of yet seen anything. So hopefully, if there's any comments raised by any concerned citizens, I can speak to that after the fact as well.
Thank you.
So essentially what we're looking to do is provide a garden suite to an existing property where in the rear yard an existing garage is sited. The proposal seeks to maintain the garage in its entirety and add a second story service space addition to that garage to create a garden suite. By virtue of the garage existing in such a way that it does, we are over coverage with respect to the 60 square meter coverage allowance and by the 20% coverage allowance. That said, the second story addition proposed encapsulates and seeks to sit within the garden suite bylaw parameters. So we've got angular plane considerations, we've got setback considerations for the second floor that we sought to be as gentle with this proposal as possible while trying to maintain the existing garage in a new function for the existing property.
Thank you. We'll move on to the person in opposition.
The speaker at 284, Gladstone, you have been unmuted.
Great. My name is Mark Cabal. I'm at 284 Gladstone.
Sorry, we're having a little difficulty hearing you. If you don't mind speaking up a bit.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
A little bit better. Could you just state your name and address again, please?
Yeah, it's Mark Rickabaugh at 284 Gladstone.
Thank you. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. All right, first off, thanks for allowing me the time today to speak in regards to this proposed addition at 282 Gladstone. My name is Mark Rickabaugh. I live at 284 Gladstone with my partner, David Brody. We wanted to raise two concerns that I think should be addressed prior to any consideration or approval of this proposed addition. Our first concern is that the existing structure already contains at least 3, possibly 4 dwelling units in the current existing structure, each occupied by a tenant, despite the records in this proposal indicating only 1 official dwelling unit on the property. The proposed addition that we see here would further increase occupancy by an additional rental unit. We believe this current reality is not consistent in this proposal, given that the property is not currently up to code for the number of units it actually houses in the existing dwelling. On the second point, we also want to call out that the current tenants today have multiple carvers on site. So there's currently 3 today on site. The current proposed soft landscaping that you see, I think it's, if you scroll up a bit towards the garage, that proposed soft landscaping there. That is where today 2 cars are currently parked. We think that the determination of where tenants' cars will be parked should be determined first before any consideration to this proposal, especially with the understanding from this proposal that at least an additional tenant will be added to the property. And also just calling out here, it doesn't look like there would be space for potentially 2 cars, even 3 cars in the back with this proposal that we're seeing. That's everything. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very kindly. Let's see if the agent has some response for you. Is that the last person in opposition? Great, thank you. Let's go back to Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the rest of the committee. The focus of this project has been on the exclusive use of the rear garage. So to the current function of the existing home, I cannot speak to that. If there are additional concerns, I mean, again, I would be happy to discuss those with my client to ensure that everyone's happy with this proposal. But with respect to current parking considerations, the required parking for this space for this existing garage is 0. City staff did highlight the fact that they did want the green space to be increased to accommodate or keep the proposal in line with the current bylaw for soft landscaping. If there was additional considerations that we could leverage in order to reduce that soft landscape to accommodate parking, we'd be happy to do so. But again, the proposal seeks to satisfy the requirements from the bylaw and city staff. So, I mean, I'd be open to the idea of permitting or reducing the soft landscape to allow more visitor parking space.
Thank you very much for that. Let me just see if my colleagues have any questions or concerns that they might like to raise. No? Okay. For my part, I'd prefer you not to reduce soft landscaping, but rather increase it. You did mention that you have increased or are intending to increase soft landscaping. Is that what I see on the site plan, the proposed site plan? I don't see a number on it, but there's an area that indicates proposed soft landscaping.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's highlighted by the diamond cross hatching, what would be between the existing garage and the proposed garden suite and the existing home. It's shaped in an L fashion.
And I take it the space right in front of the existing garage is paved, and that allows for access to the garage itself?
Currently, yes.
Okay. And from what I could also see is the proposed suite is a garden suite, laneway suite. Garden suite is essentially built directly on the existing footprint of the garage, and there's a slight overhang?
Yeah, so in order to accommodate a more useful living space on the second floor and to accommodate the bylaw for garden suites, we wanted to pull the second floor addition further from the rear to allow essentially less variance requests, which is kind of what generates this odd form. As you can see there, we've showing on the left-hand side of the drawing, showing the rear property line and pulling everything forward to A, deal with the angular plane consideration, and B, to offset the setback requirements. So that second floor space can be a useful ancillary space for the tenants. So, I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced spaces where we had slope ceilings down at our waist. It's not the most comfortable. So trying to maximize useful space as much as we can was the name of the game for this proposal.
Thank you so very much. We're going to take it into committee and see if my colleagues have any comments or thoughts, or perhaps move to a motion.
I'm happy to start, Chair. Yeah, I think, you know what, looking at the plans, I think it's very clear that the applicant has made real efforts to stay within the angular plane. That's what's guiding the structure of what's being proposed, and I appreciate that. I mean, we have to deal with a lot of variances related to the angular plane, and I think that this is an admirable effort to really respect the kind of the letter of the bylaw. And we're just left with these two variances that I believe are minor, particularly that the way that the building's being massed. I think the overage in the coverage is, I think the impact of it is minor, and then we're just for a 1% difference for the other. So I think it's actually a very good application, and I'll move approval without condition.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Mr. McKay, Mr. Gogan, any thoughts? Mr. Gogan, seconding the motion. Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor to approve by Mr. Reid and seconded by Mr. Gogan. All those in favor? Thank you very much. You have your approval, sir. Moving on to number 17. Item number 17, 203 Leslie Street. The committee has had before it the following communication. Copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. 4 photographs of the subject property received November the 12th, 2024. Arborist report prepared by Amy Choi Consulting received on November the 12th, 2024. tree protection plan prepared by Amy Choi Consulting, received November the 12th, 2024. We also have staff report from Urban Forestry, received the 22nd of January 2024. I'm not sure if we have any.
We have the agent, through the chair, we have the agent online, and there are no registered speakers.
Thank you. Is this Tura Cousins Wilson online?
Yes, it is, speaking.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear.
Yes, can you hear me? That's correct.
Yes, thank you. It doesn't look like we may not need a presentation, but let me see if my colleagues have any questions for you, or may require a short presentation, I'm not sure. No? Anybody else? No? No? I think it's a fairly straightforward application. I certainly didn't see any issues with it either, but for relatively minor variance requests. So perhaps we'll take it into committee and look for a motion. Mr. Gogan?
Yeah, I think I'd like to move this motion for approval. It's clear that, similar to the previous applicant, a lot of effort was made to work within the kind of existing kind of nature and footprint of the building. The proposed variances are minor in nature, especially with regard to the front yard landscape open space off by just a few. Obviously, we'd like to see as much of that as possible, but the FSI is I think, minor in nature, and the maximum permitted height of the front and rear exterior main walls facing is what we're seeing in these types of renovations. So again, I recommend we approve it without, with conditions.
It's forestry, yeah. Forestry 1 and 2.
Thank you.
Thank you. A seconder, Mr. McKay, thank you so very much. All in favor? Thank you. You have approval, sir. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Welcome. And moving on to item number 18, which I believe is the last item for this morning. 266 Westlake Avenue. The committee had before it the following communication. Pardon me. Copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. 2 photographs of the subject property received November 13th, 2024. Order to comply affecting the subject property. A covering letter from the agent received January 23rd, 2025. We also have staff report from community planning received January 21st, 2025.
Yeah, through the chair, we have the agent online, and there are no registered speakers.
Oh, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Ms. Amiri?
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. You've got one variance request, and nobody in opposition, so I doubt we will require a presentation. Let me just see if my colleagues have any comments or concerns or questions for you. If not, we'll take it into committee. And Mr. Reid, a question?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of community planning's condition regarding screening.
Yes. Yes. We spoke together, and she emailed me before sending the comment to the committee of adjustment, and we all agree on the screening on the sites.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or motion, perhaps? Mr. McKay?
Yes, and that's great that there's going to be screening. So I think the minor variance requested is quite straightforward and not a large one. So I'm going to move approval of this application, subject to the planning staff report with respect to opaque screening on the rear. Yeah.
Second, Mr. Reid, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Mr. Miri, you have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pardon me. And that concludes this morning's agenda. We will
Through you, Mr. Chair,
Sorry.
yes, we'll reconvene at 2 p.m.
At 2 p.m. Wonderful. Thank you so very much.